Hello. All right, so let's get started with tonight's live training. So this one in particular is one of the topics that I find myself being most excited to talk about with you guys. And it's, revolving around, long-term relationship success. So question that I want to ask you guys before really diving into tonight's training is, what do you guys feel is, that kind of secret key to long-term success? Let me know in the comments what you think, because I always hear there's a few different kind of terms that tend to swirl around that people say, whenever the question comes up, what's your secret to long-term success, especially when, you see couples out there, especially older couples, I find get asked this question a lot, how they're celebrating maybe their like 25th, 50th, 75th maybe, those kind of golden year anniversaries and all that. Get asked this question a lot, how did you manage to maintain your relationship so long? What's the secret to your relationship success? So it's a common question. So let me know down below in the comments what you feel is, the key to relationship success. So sometimes, when we're thinking about the key to relationship success, we hear terms often thrown out there. Things like, communication, trust, honesty, things like that, as just a few kind of examples. And while these aren't wrong, these are obviously very important to a relationship, especially maintaining a long-lasting relationship. Really, at the end of the day, the real key to a successful relationship, it's not known by too many people, but it's so very important, is the idea of love languages, and really understanding what love languages are, understanding what your love language is, what your partner's love language is, how to interpret love languages, and really go forth and showcase love languages. Joe, sorry I'm late, but I'm here. Awesome, Joe. Glad to have you on the live. Better late than never. One of my favorite sayings. Perfect. So something that I want to explore with you guys is the idea of love languages, what they are, how you can go about implementing them into your life, into, the person that you're going on dates with, and even further, of course, into your relationships, as well as even though this is a single group for men, there's a few men out there that, are in relationships in this group, are married men. They just wanted to be a part of this group. So this is a very applicable live training in every stage of dating and every stage of a relationship, marriage, things like that. So, Joe, yeah, I'm making dinner. Perfect. Awesome. Well, settle in for this live training, Joe, and anyone else who's on the line. Again, feel free to let me know if you're watching. Feel free to say hi in the comments. I always encourage comments throughout the live if you have any questions as we're going through as well. So let's dive into the love languages, because like I said, it really is that key to long-term relationship success. So when we're thinking of love language, there are actually 5 love languages altogether. And like I said, no matter what stage of a relationship you're at, no matter what stage of dating you're at, if you want to have that long-lasting relationship with your dream woman, then you really need to know this information, because understanding what the different love languages are exactly and truly knowing how to implement this knowledge to is just going to take your dating and furthermore your relationship to just a whole nother level. All right. And actually, and I'm going to share a personal story with you guys. Knowing the love languages and understanding them is actually what took my own personal relationship with my partner to a whole nother level as well, when we started really focusing on and incorporating each other's love languages into how we kind of interacted with each other on a daily basis. And, you know, like I said, it just took us that whole nother level, our relationship to that whole other level. And, you know, we actively celebrate together knowing that we have this really fantastic, healthy, loving relationship that only continues to grow and get better each day in every way. So my wish at the end of the day for you guys, you know, whether you're single, you know, you're just starting to date someone, you're getting more committed, you're in a committed relationship, you're married, whatever stage you're at, really my wish at the end of the day for you is to experience what I have in my life, which is a partnership filled with passion, love, patience, support, intimacy, things like that. And when you really understand and know the love languages, this is something that should come forward in your relationship with a woman. So before kind of diving into those love languages, I often get asked to, when I'm talking about love languages, you know, Rebecca, where exactly did this whole love languages come from? Where did this list come from of the 5 love languages? So, and I think it's important to also just know this background and history on it as well. So I'll basically sum it up for you guys. I'll keep it pretty short and sweet because I do really want to dive into the meat of this training, essentially, which is diving into each of those love languages and how you can, you know, incorporate them, how you can figure out which love language is yours. So your primary love language, as well as your partner's primary love language as well. So before going into that, though, looking into how these love languages even first came about, just so you guys have that brief introduction. So love languages, that term was actually first coined in 1992, which funny enough was the year I was born. Just happened to be that coincidence. So it was coined by a man named Gary Chapman. I think he goes by Dr. Gary Chapman, if you want to be official here, who basically came up with this theory exploring the idea that everyone can give and receive love in 5 different ways. So he narrowed down the idea that, you know, we give love and we receive love in different ways, and he narrowed it down to 5 specific ways. So these 5 different ways, just so you guys are aware, are: the first one is words of affirmation, the second one is quality time, the third one is receiving gifts, the fourth one is acts of service, and the fifth one is physical touch. So I know that's pretty quick, pretty summed up, but we're going to dive into more detail about what these love languages are. So like I said, he's narrowed it down to 5 different ways in particular that we give and receive love. So knowing kind of these 5 different ways, while we can give and receive love through all the love languages I just listed for you guys, those 5 love languages, according to Chapman's theory, each person actually has one primary love language in particular that really stands out the most and speaks to how they feel most loved at the end of the day. And knowing your primary love language can be especially powerful knowledge to know about yourself. when we're kind of thinking about who we are as a person, dating and relationships especially. And I mean, love languages can be actually just, this is a total side note here, but can be incorporated in different languages of, your life and different relationships that you have in your life. So relationships with your friends, relationships with family members, relationships if you have children, for example, different relationships in your life. Just as an FYI for you guys, just because of what we focus on in this group, we're only going to focus on I can't speak tonight. Romantic relationships. We're going to focus on, so obviously a romantic partner in that way. But, when you know what your primary love language is, and, it can be especially powerful knowledge, because not only does it tell you something about yourself, but also it's something that you can tell your romantic partner. Again, if you're dating, in a relationship, marriage, whatever the case being, you can tell the woman that you're with to help her understand you better, to understand kind of how we give and receive love, especially yourself, how you want to receive love the most. And that in turn can really form a deeper connection. Joe, I know mine. Awesome. Joe, post it in the comments. Let me know if you already know what your love language is, let me know in the comments. I'm really curious. So let me know. So, like I said, while it's important to know your own love language, so like I said, so you can clearly communicate how you feel most loved to the woman in your life, it's also even more so important in a way to know your partner's love language too. To show her that you love and care about her in the way that she wants to receive that love. So I want to dive in, like I said, I want to dive in deeper with you guys, exploring the different types of love languages, really, that you can use in turn to express to your partner. And I'm gonna give some examples too as well, for each type of love language, how you could go about expressing that love language with your partner, depending on what her primary love language is. So the first love language I want to look at is words of affirmation. So when we're looking at words of affirmation, that love language, how do you know this is your love language? So here's some, questions I can ask you guys. Let me know if you're listening to this, if you identify with these questions I'm going to put out there to you guys. If you identify with this, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to hear what, especially if you guys already know what your love language is, I would love to hear in the comments below what your primary love language is. But I'm going to go through each one. Let me know if you identify with these questions. Like I said, I'm starting off with words of affirmation. So when do you find yourself really being, feeling loved when someone tells you how proud they are of you? Do you find yourself lighting up when a woman tells you how handsome you look or how sexy you look? Are you someone eagerly waiting for a woman to text you back so you can hear from her again? Let me know again if you connect with any of these questions in the comments. And if you answered yes to any of these questions, then it's very possible that words of affirmation might just be your primary love language. So for those who identify with words of affirmation being their primary love language, actions don't necessarily speak louder than words. So probably a lot of you out there have heard the cliche of actions speak louder than words. Well, for someone who has the primary love language of words of affirmation, they are someone that really hangs on tight to words. In fact, things like an unexpected compliment can really mean the world to you if you identify with this love language. If words of affirmation is your primary love language, then you fully know well that the words that come out of someone's mouth, especially from the mouth of someone you care about, is really crucial. You really can connect with them, either both in a good or bad way, because you know that these words can either make you feel immeasurable joy or they can leave you feeling hurt and crushed. So hearing the words, for example, I love you, are important for you to hear, especially from the woman you're with, the woman you're attracted to, and hearing out loud the reasons behind someone saying I love you can really just boost your spirit. However, insults, on the other hand, can really leave you feeling shattered inside. And it's something you just don't tend to easily forget. Maybe you hold a grudge a little bit. And in some cases, maybe you just can't even forgive that person too, based on the words that they've shared or the words that they've said. Like I said, kind and encouraging words, though, do build you up. Now, if this is your love language, you know what is needed really at the end of the day to make you feel loved, right? If you find yourself really connecting with what I just shared, really resonating with what I just shared, you know what best can make you feel loved. But on the other hand, if this is your partner's, so this is your woman's love language, you might be, and it's maybe not necessarily yours, but it's hers, you might be wondering, how can I go about speaking her love language? If you asked her what her love language is and she said, my love language is words of affirmation. Personally, I found words of affirmation tends to be a popular one with women as being their primary love language. It's not surprising because often in my lives, I do tell you guys how women tend to communicate a lot with their words. That does tend to be their form of communication. So it's not surprising that a lot of women out there, I find, do tend to identify with words of affirmation being their primary love language. So if your partner does identify with this love language and you're not 100% sure how you could really speak her love language, there's a few different examples I just kind of wrote down in my notes that I want to share with you guys just to give you guys some, tips and ideas. So one idea you could do to speak her love language here is to tell her, either in person, through text, on the phone, whatever, kind of works best for your relationship, something that you like about her. So for example, you could say, so we're thinking about maybe compliments, right? So you can maybe say, you are the most beautiful woman in the world, right? So a woman that has words of affirmation, she is really going to take that to heart. That's going to show her she feels really cared about. She feels really loved. She feels amazing hearing that if that is her love language. So another thing that you can do as well is if there is the opportunity where she maybe has a small or a big win in her life. So let's say she had to give a presentation at work and she comes back home and she says, hey, presentation went really well. Or, she comes home from work and she found out she just got a promotion today at work. Those kind of wins we have in life, right? Whether they're big or small. But for someone that has words of affirmation, for you to go forward and to actively make kind of almost like a big deal out of it, that she had this amazing win, again, whether it's a big or small win in her life, that you go out of your way to almost make a big deal out of it. You celebrate it with her. You tell her how proud you are of her. Things like that, just really bring on the words and just make her feel like that $1,000,000. At the end of the day, she's really going to feel loved and cared for because you're speaking her love language, right? So another thing too for women who have, or just people in general, I should say, that have words of affirmation as their love language, I do also find they tend to connect a lot with the written word as well, outside of just verbal communication. So doing something like writing her a love note and really going on and sharing deeply about how you feel about her, how she makes you feel, what you love most about her. So right, like we're thinking about that old school love note, is something else that you can do for a woman that connects with words of affirmation. And again, if this is something that's your love language, you're probably resonating a lot with what I'm sharing too, and thinking in your mind, hey, like, I would like those things too. So, these are ideas that you can also keep in mind as well, that if this is your love language, that you can share this with your partner if they're needing some ideas, if they don't fully understand like love languages or what this specific love language is. You can share some of those ideas that I just shared to help her to be able to speak your love language in turn. So the next love language, the second love language I want to share with you guys is quality time. All right. So how do you know if quality time is your primary love language? So I'm going to ask you guys a series of questions. Let me know in the comments if you connect and resonate with these questions, because that might mean quality time is your primary love language. So when you like a woman, do you find yourself wanting to spend all your free time with her? Does it really irk you when a woman is on her phone while on a date with you? Do you enjoy hanging out, spending time, going on dates with your partner, even if you have nothing to do necessarily, but just the fact just being together is really the most meaningful thing for you at the end of the day? So let me know if you connect with any of those questions, because if you answered yes to any of those questions, then it's very possible that quality time could be your primary love language. So for those that have quality time as their primary love language, then really at the end of the day, nothing says I love you from your partner more than having your partner's full undivided attention on you. In fact, you probably have almost like a love-hate relationship with technology maybe, because you feel most loved when you and your woman don't have your noses buried in your phones. But when a woman can't really put her phone down to really give you her undivided attention, it's really what gets you upset or really hurts you deep down below the most. Because really being there, and I mean just like fully there, undivided attention, for someone whose primary love language is quality time, That's something that's just so crucial for that person, right? That's what makes them feel most loved and cared about. And again, if you connecting with this, if you're resonating with this, you're also probably the type of man that defines feeling most loved when the TV is turned off, all the chores and tasks are on hold as well. And this way you could almost just like soak up the moment and just truly be there together with no distractions and just really thoroughly enjoying each other's presence. And that's when you probably feel the most special and loved by your partner. Again, if you really connect and resonate a lot with what I'm sharing. So again, if this is your love language, again, you're probably connecting a lot with what I'm sharing, but let's say that this is not your love language, but this is your partner's love language. They share this as your partner shares with you. She says, quality time is my love language, And if you're not really fully familiar with how to kind of speak the quality time love language, how you can make her feel most loved and cared for, there's a few different examples I have that I can share with you guys. This is really good stuff that I'm sharing with you guys like in this free live training. So I hope you guys are taking notes. This is a really good one to take a lot of notes actually. So if your partner's love language is quality time, one way that you can be able to show that love language is to invest in each other's interests, especially hers if quality time is her love language, and do activities together that can really deepen your connection more through sharing time together. So again, there's so many different activities I could sit there and list, but what's really crucial is especially focusing on her interests, her hobbies, her activities. Again, if this is her love language, obviously, of course, if you're the one that has quality time as your love language, then we're going to reverse the situations and she should be, investing in your hobbies, especially even more so. You should both invest in each other's hobbies. But again, if this is your love language, then the roles are reversed in that way. Another way that you can show or essentially speak the quality time love language, if your partner connects with that, is to take a vacation day off together and really spend the day together doing her favorite thing. So kind of similar to the point I shared just now, but doing something like, say she really loves going to zoos, just as an example, she's a really big animal lover and all that, go to the zoo for the day, right? Just the fact that you took a vacation day off, you took a day off work just to come back to her and say, look, I took this day off. I just want to spend the day with you. I just want to invest in you and all that. Holy moly, if that's her primary love language, she is just going to feel so loved and cared for and just really prioritized as well in your life. So another idea that you could do is to plan a movie night and watch her favorite movie. So guys, this is just a side note, but that could, include maybe watching a chick flick. Again, up to you guys, but if she's really into chick flicks, which most women are, the fact that you would watch her favorite chick flick, let's say, we'll just also take it to that whole nother level to really show that you care about her, that you really want to show love for her and prioritize her love language, and, cuddle up together on the couch and just have a movie night. And what's especially, very important as well is to make, for someone who has this as their love language and say you're whatever activity you're doing, that you're spending that quality time with her. I mentioned earlier about the importance of undivided attention. So really turn off all digital entertainment, outside, unless you're having a movie night. But, really what you should prioritize is disconnecting from, the internet, if that makes sense for the activity you're doing, but getting away really and staying off your phones, right? We all tend to be, or not all of us, but a lot of us out there tend to be really buried in our phones and tend to be very distracted by our phones. So, really putting the phone away and enjoying the moment with her, giving her undivided attention, and just really connecting with each other in that traditional way, again, is really just going to speak volumes to her, just how much you love and care about her. So moving forward, I want to look at the third love language that I mentioned, which is the receiving gifts love language. So this one's pretty straightforward, but there's some other things that maybe you guys should keep in mind. It's not as, obvious as it sounds. So what I want to know to you guys, because there's a little bit more depth, it's not, as materialistic as it sounds. So if receiving gifts is your primary love language, or you're not sure, there's a few questions I want to ask you guys, just to kind of explore it a little bit more. And let me know in the comments if these questions really resonate with you, if you're saying yes to any of them. So, does receiving a thoughtful gift from a woman make you feel loved at the end of the day? What about when we look at a grand gesture, or, to really show how much your partner cares about you? Does a grand gesture, is that something that's important to you? Do you feel a homemade gift, versus a gift that you buy, is the best kind of gift that you could receive? Let me know what you think of these questions, if you resonate with them, in the comments below. Because if you answered yes to any of these questions, then it's possible that receiving gifts might just be your primary love language. So, as I said, don't be too quick when we're exploring this love language. Don't be too quick to mistake this love language for meaning that anyone who has this as their primary love language is materialistic by any means. So a lot of people make that mistake and assumption when it comes to this love language, because it's not necessarily the case. It doesn't mean someone is automatically materialistic when receiving gifts as their primary love language, because at the end of the day, the people that connect with receiving gifts as their primary love language really focus in and thrive on the love, thoughtfulness, and effort behind a gift. So it's not necessarily, again, when we think of materialism, we tend to think of price. And, we tend to go to the notion of, well, a gift has to be really expensive, right? So that's not necessarily what people who have receiving gifts as their primary love language tend to think. Again, it's a common assumption. It's a common mistake that a lot of people can make when thinking of this love language. They tend to really focus on more so the thoughtfulness and the love and energy and effort behind a gift. So that's what they really connect a lot more with, for those that have this as their primary love language. So if you have this as your primary love language, then the perfect gift shows that you are known, that you are cared for, that you are prized above whatever was sacrificed to purchase, to make, to bring this specific gift to you. Again, material gifts aren't necessarily the only thing that you love, though. as well, because gestures, especially daily gestures, by your partner can easily be just as important as they are, when we're thinking of a physical gift itself. So those that connect with this love language, their biggest fear and worry tends to be having their partner miss, say, like a really important event or holiday. So missing their birthday is definitely a really big one. Missing an anniversary, or again, like any really special event or holiday that's especially important to them and your relationship. And another thing too is that a hasty or thoughtless gift, or really the absence of kind of everyday gestures from the woman you care about, can also be equally disastrous and can make you feel unloved or uncared for if you connect with this love language. Because plain and simple, gifts are kind of the heartfelt symbols to you of someone else's love and affection for you. So again, if this is something you resonate a lot with, what I've shared, then it's very possible that this could be your primary love language. So what happens if, say, you don't connect with this, but your partner shares that this is her love language, right? When we're talking about receiving gifts, how do you go about speaking that love language, right? Because again, you don't want to assume it's related to materialistic things, or that she is materialistic, because it's really, like I said, at the end of the day, it's more so the thought, the effort, the energy that went into, creating that gift, procuring that gift, whatever type of sacrifice you did to get a hold of this gift for her. It's that thought, it's the energy, it's the effort, really, that shows she cares. So what are some ways that you can speak the receiving gifts love language to your partner if this is her primary love language? So one example you could do is to, and this is especially one that seems to be popular with a lot of women out there in particular, is to purchase a small stuffed animal and a romantic card to give her on a special holiday or event that's important to her, right? So we're talking about, Valentine's Day is a really big example that comes to mind. Her birthday, an anniversary. You can even go as far as, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a special event, or a holiday. You can just say to her, you got this because you just wanted to see her smile, just because there wasn't a reason, behind it. You just want to make her happy. That's something she would see as that, gift, that gesture that shows you really care and love about her, that you're speaking her love language. Another one that I can give you guys as an example is to buy her favorite flowers. Majority of women out there, we really love flowers, and we all tend to have a favorite flower. For me personally, my favorite flower is red roses. I'm pretty traditional, I guess, in that way. But that's something that, a lot of us women really love is flowers. It's a really simple gift. And you don't even have to, buy a dozen roses or, really expensive flowers. Just picking up a bouquet at your local grocery store, for example, local gas station. Again, bringing it home just because you thought of her when you saw them, and you want to make her smile. Just even doing that for her is just such a thoughtful gesture and shows her that you really care. Another thing that you can do to really speak this love language is to make her a small, homemade gift that you're putting in thought, you put in effort into, and again, give it to her, either for a special holiday or event, or just because, again, you just want to see her smile. But the fact that you went out and created it, it's homemade, things like that, is just going to go such a long way for her. So the fourth love language I want to explore with you guys is the acts of service love language. So again, I'm going to ask you guys a series of questions. Let me know if you resonate with this in the comments below. Let me know if you say yes to any of these questions. So how do you know if acts of service is your primary love language? Well, do you love when a woman cooks you a meal or washes the dishes after you eat together? Are you wishing that, say, your partner would ask you how she can help you out more, either around the house or in life in general? Do you enjoy when a woman offers to pay on a first date or just offers to pay on a date with you in general? So if you resonate with these questions, if you answered yes to any of these questions, then it's very possible that your primary love language can be acts of service. So, when we think about it, can a woman helping you out around the house, working on a project together, or just doing something for you without complaining at all, no complaining, she just does it, really be a way of showing love? Well, yes, actually, it turns out, because actually for those who do actually connect with acts of service love language, it's their primary love language, they are men that tend to be really relieved when a woman in particular steps up and takes charge in certain areas. In fact, anything a woman can do to really just ease the burden of responsibilities, maybe weighing on you, will speak volumes to you, and huge love volumes, actually. And it really, if this is your love language, then the words you probably want to hear the most from a woman is, okay, sweetie, okay, honey, let me actually do that for you, right? So hearing that makes you feel loved. So now when we look on the other side of things, what kind of turns you off in this, if this is your primary love language? Well, you're probably really turned off by lazy women, broken commitments, and really your partner who actually ends up making more work for you, making your life harder. In fact, these things can just make you feel like your feelings, your love language, doesn't actually matter to the woman you care about at all. Because when a woman serves you out of love and not out of obligation, that's when you truly feel valued. That's when you truly feel loved. So again, if you resonate a lot with what I just shared with you guys, again, this is probably your primary love language. So now when we look at it on the other side of things, we flip the script. If this is not your love language, but your partner comes to you and she shares acts of service, that's my primary love language, or that already about her, but you're not 100% sure how you can actually go about speaking this love language. Well, this is another one that does tend, I find from time to time, come up with women I speak with, because a lot of times women talk about the idea of men helping her around the house, helping her with chores, so when we think of just kind of typical chores around the house, a lot of women appreciate when a man steps up and helps them in that way. So again, when we're thinking about the acts of service love language. So some examples of how you can speak it if your partner connects with it. So one example could be cooking her favorite meal. So home cooked meal. And this is especially important if she's, the one that normally cooks in the household. This is a really good one for you guys because that's just such a weight off her shoulders. And then on top of that, taking care of the dishes afterwards. You do all this, cook her favorite meal, taking care of the dishes afterwards. For a woman that connects with acts of service as her love language, this is just going to speak such huge volumes to her, how much you care, love, and support her. Another one that you guys can do for her, and this is really great one, especially if she's had a really rough day or just a really long day, she's just really tired after work. Make her a special bubble bath with her favorite scents, candles, soft, relaxing music. It's going to really just help her get into such a peaceful and calm state. And she's really just going to feel very cared for and really touched by the gesture, especially. So this other idea I had is a really kind of almost stereotypical one, but it's still very applicable for acts of service because a lot of women out there do tend to like a man who is almost like a handyman to a certain, degree, depending on, kind of what works with you. But when that's a quality that a lot of women I hear do tend to like, that man that's handy. And like I said, it could be to different degrees, but even when we're looking at just the most basic, but let's say she has a light bulb that burns out or light bulb burns out in the house, just you replacing that light bulb for her. No problem, baby. I'll take care of that. Let me replace that bulb for you. Especially if she's not able to reach it or necessarily fix it, replace it for herself. Just you doing that is just a gesture that would go really, really far with her. So we're looking now at the last of the love languages, the fifth love language, which is physical touch. In my experience, especially because I do deal with men on a daily basis, obviously in my line of work, I talk a lot to you guys. I get a lot of messages from you guys. I find physical touch tends to be the most popular amongst men, especially tends to be a lot of you guys love language. So I definitely want to share this one with you guys. Again, it's not necessarily every man, but I do hear this from a lot of men that they do tend to connect with this love language in particular. But again, you can connect with any of these I shared. I wanted to touch on them all just in case if you guys connected with any other ones too. So when we're looking at physical touch, so a lot of people tend to jump to the obvious, make assumptions. Well, okay, if your primary love language is physical touch, you must be obsessed with sex or you want to have sex all the time. Huge, huge misconception. And I'm going to dive into, why and break that myth, that misconception there. Before I do that though, I want to ask you guys a few questions just to see if, you resonate with this love language, if you say yes to any of these questions and connect with it. So when we're thinking of this love language, just out of curiosity, has anyone ever described you as being touchy-feely before? Are you someone that appreciates getting more a personal message than, say, a physical gift? Like, a personal message excites you a lot more than a physical gift? Are you someone who's very comfortable with public displays of affection, so PDA, even in front of large groups of people? Are you someone that looks forward to things like kisses and intimacy, cuddles with your partner really more than anything else? So if you answered yes to any of these questions, if any of these things resonate with you, then physical touch is probably your love language. So if this is your primary love language, not too surprisingly, you are probably someone who is very touchy, described as touchy. I use the term touchy-feely especially, and a lot of people use that term. And a lot of people, like I said, tend to make the common mistake that a person whose love language is physical touch must be someone, like I said, obsessed with sex, or has maybe a very high sex drive, wants to have sex all the time. However, this isn't necessarily the case. Again, it's a common misconception that's associated with someone that has this love language. But when we're looking at physical touch, it doesn't just encompass sex. It encompasses all sorts of physical intimacy, more than I think probably most people feel like, because it can include touches such as, innocent touches. So things like hugs or holding hands, to more maybe romantic touches. So things like kissing and cuddling, to, of course, obviously more intimate touches like sex and foreplay. But all these types of touches, innocent to the more intimate ones, can all be ways to really show excitement, concern, care, and love to someone whose primary love language is physical touch. So if you have the physical touch love language as your primary one, then you know how much physical presence is just crucial to you. So this is another area of physical touch that I feel like a lot of people don't realize when it comes to this love language, the importance of the physical presence, being with someone. In fact, this love language in particular struggles the most with long distance relationships, followed, I would also say, by very closely by quality time. But this one in particular really struggles with long distance relationships due to the fact that your partner is so far away and you can't be physically there to touch them often or be touched in return. So if physical touch is your love language, then accessibility is really crucial for you to be really happiest with your partner, while neglect, abuse, and things like that, especially physical abuse, can be really seen as unforgivable and just really destructive in your eyes if this is your love language. Because really the most important thing to remember for someone that has this as their primary love language is that appropriate and timely touches, again, whether they're innocent touches, romantic touches, more intimate touches, any type of touch really communicates warmth, safety, and love to you. So again, this is something you resonate a lot with what I shared. As I said, this is probably your primary love language when we're looking at physical touch. So let's say that physical touch is not your love language, but it is your partner's. Because I know there's a number of women out there, for example, that physical touch is also their primary love language too. So what happens if your partner expresses that it's their love language? How do you go about speaking that to your partner? Well, some examples can be, just simply you wrapping your arms around her waist and giving her a long hug from behind, maybe while kissing her neck and shoulders. So, using your touch, so the touch of your arms around her waist, you're hugging her, you're enclosing your body around her, and then you're also using your lips to kiss her in different areas and things like that. So it's multiple touch points going on. So this is really effective for her, to really show your love and care for her. Another thing too, to really showcase love to someone who connects with the physical touch love language, is to hold her hand, especially when in public, whether you're, kind of walking around a park, so going for a walk, or you're at a store together shopping, just holding her hand, especially out in public. It's just really showcasing her off. Again, we're looking at how I mentioned, like public displays of affection, PDA. Again, holding hands is technically a form of PDA. We don't necessarily have to go to the extreme side of things, but even just as simple as holding hands, is really effective for her to see how much you care and love her. So another idea is to plan to give her a romantic or an intimate back massage, and you can surround it with things like candles and soft, relaxing music, but really just touching her all over, exploring her body. This is something that is just going to really speak her love language, really allow her to feel very intimate with you, to feel really loved and cared for through that. So that's all 5 of the love languages. Let me know in the comments. I know I shared a lot with you guys, a lot of information, but this is really just such amazing information, amazing knowledge to really know at the end of the day, to help you be successful in, a long-term, long-lasting relationship. And these are things, when we're looking at the love languages, something that's important to note for your relationship to really be successful at the end of the day, you have to be doing and speaking each other's love languages. So she has to be speaking your love language as well as you speaking her love language, really on a daily basis, or if you guys are apart, finding ways that you can do it if possible. If you guys are together, then obviously, of course, actively doing it on a daily basis. But you really have to get in the habit of speaking each other's love languages to really help you be successful and happy in your relationship. Again, this is information that's applicable no matter what stage you're at in your dating life. If you're single and not dating someone, this is great information for you to know moving forward that you can implement, starting right away to help a woman feel appreciated and cared for by you. This is something you can use even if you're just seeing a woman, you've only gone on a few dates. This is information you can use when you're, of course, in a relationship, and especially moving forward when we're talking about marriage, and that definitely that long-lasting commitment there. So I'm just going to go through before kind of closing up. Feel free to drop in the comments below if you guys have any questions, anything else you guys want to share, what love language I shared that you guys resonated the most, or if you already know your primary love language, let me know. I'm just checking your guys' comments right now. All right. Joe, you shared in the comments, mine is physical touch, followed very, very closely by quality time. Words of affirmation is high on the list too. Absolutely. So as I shared in this live training, a lot of us out there do tend to have one love language that sticks out the most. However, we might connect, in some different ways, depending what we're even going through in the day and all that, there might be certain love languages that stand out, a little bit more day to day. They might change day to day, but there's always tends to be one in particular at the end of the day that always is something that stays consistent to us. We'll always feel very loved if this person speaks our love languages, acts on this specific love language, which is our primary. So Joe, yours is physical touch. So that was the last one I mentioned. So you probably resonate a lot with that one I shared. Joe, romance movies. Yes, definitely. Like I said, guys, don't be afraid to watch those chick flicks. It really shows you care about her, especially when we're looking at things like quality time. So, Joe, so are you saving the best for last? Well, like I said, obviously physical touch was the last one I mentioned. There's no love language that's particularly the best one because we're all unique individuals. We're all different people. And we're going to feel different things really at the end of the day. We're going to feel, and maybe connect more with different love languages, right? Like, so I said, there's always one love language in particular that's going to be the primary. I've known guys, and I should say men and women that I know out there that do have, for example, physical touch as their primary love language. I know men and women out there that have acts of service as their primary love language, quality time as their primary love language, receiving gifts as their primary love language, words of affirmation. But I did mention the ones that do tend to come up the most often, that I personally can say I've heard from speaking to a lot of women and men as well out there, of course, in my line of work, that the most popular ones do tend to be words of affirmation with women. A lot of women out there that tends to be their primary love language, as well as for a lot of men out there, physical touch. However, that's, a lot of men and women out there tend to connect with those two a lot, but definitely, whatever kind of you find yourself really connecting with at the end of the day, that's really the most important, is knowing your love language and knowing your partner's love language. That's what's most important, right? And that's what you want to focus on. Joe, cuddles. Yep, absolutely. That's a big one for physical touch, which I know you just mentioned being your primary love language. All right, just scrolling through here. Joe, yes, very good point on the physical presence. Long distance relationships for me are pretty much impossible long term. Yes, absolutely. Like I said, physical touch tends to be the love language that struggles with long distance relationships, especially. It tends to be really difficult. So it sounds like you obviously relate and resonate a lot with that one as well. Joe, I know it's not the best. I was just teasing. Yes, you were probably saying that because that's your primary love language for sure. All right. Perfect. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you for everyone who was part of the live. Again, if for some reason